So I'd like to welcome you to the second half of the forum today, following our break for lunch. And in this session, we're going to hear from the student voice, and specifically the students are going to be looking at the ethical and equitable use of AI. We've invited two of our student ambassadors to present today. And for those of you who aren't familiar with our student ambassador scheme, I mentioned it a little bit in the AGM, but many of you may not have been there this morning. The Institution of Environmental Sciences Student Ambassador Scheme is a really excellent and valuable opportunity for students at accredited universities to be involved in CEDHE and also in IES more widely. And they are able to use their input to steer and provide input into tailored IES activities, and also really importantly for IES to promote professional body membership to the students within their institutions, really trying to sell IES to them to make them understand the importance of being a member of a professional body as they move into environmental careers, and also pointing out a lot of the really valuable resources that are available to them. And for those of you who aren't particularly familiar with the IES website, I'd really encourage you to have a look. There's a really excellent jobs website. The website's being renovated and rejigged at the moment, so it's going to become even more user-friendly, and we're looking forward to the launch of that soon. But there's a jobs website on there, including lots of lists of placement opportunities for students, which we know are increasingly important, and also lots of good resources, including the regularly published journal, The Environmentalist, and teaching resources alongside that as well. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, who unfortunately isn't able to join us in person today, but has really kindly recorded her talk for us. And this is Mariya Abubakar. Mariya is a student member of IES. She's one of our student ambassadors, and she's currently studying for a BSc in environmental science at Qatar University.
Imagine it's the year 2075, the skies are cleaner, the forests are thriving, and endangered species are bouncing back, all thanks to the decisions we made today powered by artificial intelligence. Or it's the year 2075, the last panda is a hologram, and students are learning about coral reefs through pixelated simulations because the real ones are all gone. And AI is helping us calculate exactly how much we messed up. Is it the planet of the future or of regret? Hello everyone, I'm Mariya, and today I'll be sharing my perspective as a student in the integration of artificial intelligence in environmental education. Just to provide a bit of a background, I'm currently a third-year undergraduate student at Qatar University. I'm majoring in environmental science, and I should also mention that I'm a Bangladeshi who grew up here, so I'll be sharing my perspective as a student, shaped by both cultures as well as how AI is used in both countries. In my university in general, we're not allowed to use AI for exams, obviously, and for plagiarizing assignments, but we're encouraged to use AI for learning purposes. And while the university does not necessarily provide access to AI itself, AI is pretty much everywhere in Google, in Siri, in Microsoft Copilot, whatever you call it. So it's pretty much accessible to everyone within the applications used daily. But other than this, there aren't any kind of specific regulations. The student conduct book does say you're not allowed to use AI for plagiarizing, but that's just it. There aren't any kind of guidance other than this. There aren't any kind of strict limitations other than this. So it really comes down to how much the user wants to engage with AI. As for how I, as a student, use AI, I use AI to generate ideas. Maybe when I'm working on Microsoft PowerPoint and I want to generate new slides without having to waste much time to outline writing projects. Maybe when I'm working on a work document and I'm on a writer's block, so I would probably ChatGPT my ideas to arrange it in a way that's coherent to find relevant content. For example, when you're working on a document and you need to know whether the research you're trying to find actually exists or not, and to learn new things. For example, this semester one of my professors encouraged us to use AI to learn the basic commands of our studio, so we could save much time and we could also not waste time on our studio without knowing the basic commands. As for the cultural perspective in AI usage, I want to highlight three different things: accessibility, regulations, and ethics, how accessible AI is to the public, what kind of regulations are being in place, And what is the general attitude towards using AI? It really comes down to how progressive your society is. For Bangladesh and Qatar, I would say both the countries are very progressive. So AI is almost accepted by everyone. Its usage is widely common and it's very accessible as long as you have an internet connection. Although in case of Bangladesh, I would say because it's a larger country and I don't know if all the areas are covered for internet um, signals, I would say like there may be some areas where AI would not be accessible because there isn't a stable internet connection. But in general, AI is accessible to everyone in the public. And there aren't any kind of strict regulations in place. For example, in universities that are aware of the ChatGPT usage or AI in general, or for my university, they do state that you're not allowed to use AI, but there aren't really any kind of strict regulations that check how much AI you're using or what you're using the AI for. There are AI regulations in submitting assignments, but in general, there aren't any kind of limitations. As far as I'm aware, I don't know if there are any strict government regulations in place in Bangladesh, but in Qatar, last year, the National Cybersecurity Agency issued guidelines responsible for AI adaptation, highlighting the importance of transparency, accountability, and human oversight. I do have to mention that I only learned about it researching about for this PowerPoint itself, so it's not exactly known by everyone. As for the ethics usage, I would say the public perception of AI in Qatar as well as Bangladesh is very positive, although towards older generations it's more mixed because they aren't really interested in their children using AI because they think it's going to stop them from critical thinking and other creative aspects of life, which I agree. But also, it this is also related to how much accessible it is and how AI is progressing rapidly. So I believe both the societies are trying to catch up towards the latest trends, therefore having so much widespread AI usage. So the general consensus I would say is positive. As for the aspects in using AI, I want to highlight the advantages, disadvantages, and the concerns. For the advantages, I want to say it has very quick outputs. You can just use AI simultaneously while you're working on your documents. For example, Microsoft Copilot generates slides while you're working on your current slide. So it's very quick. It's very accessible as long as you have a proper Wi-Fi connection. It does not really need any kind of expertise to use unless you want to use it while being environmentally conscious, and it can automate repetitive tasks easily, for example, using it for calculations in Excel or using it to automate your table of content in your Word document. As for the disadvantages, there's definitely ethical concerns whether you're using AI for the right thing, whether you should be using AI for your assignments, whether you should be using AI for learning, while it's causing damages to the environment. There's also the possibility that it may provide you wrong information, so you're wasting your time as well as energy using AI. There's a definitive loss of humanity. It's not giving you any kind of creative outputs. It's just parroting whatever inputs it's been given in the past. And it's definitely damaging to the environment. It requires huge amount of water to cool down its engines. So you're not only damaging yourself, you're also damaging the environment. As for the concerns, I want to highlight whether the benefits of AI outweigh the necessity to protect the planet. I don't think so, because we don't know the current limit of AI's progression yet, and we don't know what benefits exactly AI can do, which we cannot do ourselves. And we definitely do need to protect our planet given its current situation in climate change, global warming, ocean acidification, and other aspects. So I do not think that our we need to be this reliant on AI for our day-to-day activities when we can just do it ourselves while the situation in the environment is already bad. And is the current progression of AI safe? We do not know the current progression of AI yet, because we're just general people. We're not working in that specific department. We do not know what they're building, and we do not know what AI can do yet and what AI cannot do yet. So there's also that. And with mention to the lag in the regulations and the implementation of guidance, I don't think it's safe because as students, we use AI for a lot of things without thinking about the consequences, and the government is not being yet adapted towards the AI usage being this widely spread. So there aren't really specific regulations that prohibit us from using AI. So we're just going to continue doing what we do, which will in turn harm the environment more. With all that said, I want to highlight my final thoughts on the usage of AI in education in general. Limiting AI usage in education would only increase students' curiosity and push them towards exploring it on their own, which will result in them not following proper guidance or regulations in the AI usage. And I also need to mention that in my university, what I saw was that they were very harsh on using AI in the beginning, which is what caused the students to gravitate more towards AI usage because they wanted to know what the fuss was all about. So I definitely don't recommend doing that. And the technology is still relatively new for it to be this widely expressed. As I mentioned, there's a lag between the guidance being published, and there's a lag between the rules implemented, as well as there's a lag between the progression of AI. So even the government is not aware of everything AI can do, therefore there's no any kind of regulations to stop that. There's also not enough resources accessible to everyone, nor restrictions to use AI ethically. Normal people don't really keep up to date with the current regulations in place, and therefore, I would say with confidence, at least 80% of the people don't know the guidances published by the cybersecurity agency. So they're not exactly aware there's any kind of guidances in place at all. Now, I have some questions for the audience, and I want you to think, as environmental scientists, what role do you think AI should play in environmental education? And is including AI usage for environmental education really necessary when we can just do it ourselves, clearly without damaging the environment this much? So that's it for my presentation. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did making it.
I'm really pleased to invite Samuel Inkster to present for the second part of this session. Samuel is also a student member of the IES, and he's currently studying for a BSc in Environmental Science at the University of Southampton. So I'm going to hand over to you, Samuel.
Perfect, thank you. So about me, I'm a second year environmental science student at the University of Southampton. In our school, AI use is prohibited, so we're not allowed to use AI. But as a student, I do encounter it daily. I use it quite regularly, not necessarily for assignments, but for day-to-day things, and advice and guidance. But at the University of Southampton, some other schools, like engineering, AI use is quite freely allowed. So there's a difference there. But I have a lot of friends that use this AI. I use AI in my I don't put it in the output of the assignment, but for a lot of the input, like planning ideas, I'll put the brief in for the assignment, ask me to generate ideas. Often if it's like help me with making graphs in like R using R code, I might get AI. If I get stuck in some of the R code, I often turn to AI, ask it to generate some R code for me to help produce that output. So yeah. So the AI for environmental education is hypocritical because of course there is the electricity consumption and those associated carbon dioxide emissions with it. And some of the stats are actually quite shocking. Like this New York to Beijing thing, it's emit 5 grams of CO2 and it's much more than the standard web search thing like Google. And Google has started to put the AI description at the top now. But I think my personal view is that I can't really see a future without high electricity consumption, unfortunately. The technology is rising rapidly, more than ever. I remember when the iPhone 4 came out, and now we're on the iPhone whatever. So yeah, it's going quite rapidly. I think it's our responsibility. You can either look at it that way: do we reduce our electricity consumption, or do we make sure that the energy mix that we're feeding that electricity consumption is the best it can possibly be? So I think you can target it from that perspective. Yeah. But some universities are completely allowing the use of AI. There's a few which I know. I read something about the University of Oxford allowing AI in some of its schools or something. You've got to ask, does this give an unfair advantage to graduates? I mean, yeah, that is the question. I know a lot of my lecturers say, oh, if you use ChatGPT for assignment, the average grade you get back from that would be about 60%. I know that's what I get told. But is there a skills gap that could happen if there's not a university-wide policy for AI use in the environment? We have to ask ourselves that. And then that would mean that higher grade students may not necessarily be smarter, and that's unfair to employers. So you have to consider that as well. The whole grading system could be jeopardized by not having a singular policy, having differences. And that's why we do marking, we do assignments, we do them so we can differentiate the abilities really between people. Yeah, so we assess an individual's ability. That's the purpose of an assessment. And it's an interesting take, though. If we're using an artificial system to measure, to do the assessment, then are we measuring that individual? We're just measuring the robot. You kind of have to ask yourself that. But then you've got the other half of it. You can argue that actually you're the one putting the prompts in, you're the one tailoring that AI. And is that what it's marking off? So yeah, it does jeopardize the meaning of assessment, really. Yeah, it's an interesting point. So if something in an assignment is incorrect, I know a lot of ChatGPT softwares, they often make up references. You look up the name and the date and that won't be available. I've had friends that have been done for academic integrity because they've put their sources into ChatGPT, asked them to standardize their formula, and it's changed the titles. They haven't checked. They've been done for it. So things like that. But who's responsible in that case if something in an assignment is incorrect? You know, the person using it or the AI model itself. So in any case, it always has to be the user, because the amount of information that AI spurs out would be too much to regulate or punish. It would always have to be the user. So that must be acknowledged, that if there was a dispute between the university and a student about academic integrity, and they say, oh, I used AI, it's the ChatGPT's fault, that argument is invalid. Yes, it is the user's fault, but it's a bit of a weaker argument. They've got a stronger case if they're saying, oh, AI changed it or something. So that makes it difficult in terms of cracking down on AI use. But there's lots of things like what we do with AI, the way it's progressing. We also have to ask ourselves, is there going to be a point where AI overtakes what the human race can know? And this might not be on the environment side, but it is important to acknowledge that we're talking about algorithms that can potentially learn by themselves, self-learning algorithms. And when they get to the point where they can self-learn, is the point where they can do things without input. And when they can do things without input, we have no regulation or knowledge of what they can be capable of doing. And I always think that's important to address. It does worry me. I think it does definitely concern me that there is that element of it. And the question we really must ask ourselves is, what are we adding to the world that AI can't? Because if AI gets to a point where they can do everything we can do and better, then that's a worrying state, because what are we adding? So I think if we get to that point, we are in trouble. So I think the question doesn't become, should we allow AI? It should be, what do we give in a world that is dominated by AI? Which is a slightly distressing concern. Although I have said that, I do think AI needs to be much more regulated. The laws in the UK take a long time to get through. We've got a progressive attitude, generally, but we have, the laws take a while to get through, and there is very little in terms of governing AI and what it does, because it's rapidly evolving. I've seen things like ones that can, there's those AI powered robots that can do things, serve drinks, things like that now, start taking jobs. There's that social element to it. That's always a difficult question. I mean, the way AI is heading, we have to be precautionary. But I think if you're going to allow AI to be used in assessments, then you've got the lecturer side of things, the teachers. What about them? Does that mean they can use AI to mark? Because theoretically you would have to say yes. You'd have to say, if we're going to allow students to do it, then we must allow lecturers to use it for marking. But then that would cause quite a lot of controversy, I think. I think that would cause a lot of uproar. People would say, I'm paying £10,000 for my tuition fees. I think when you get AI to do something, there's always the temptation to not check it. I often think it gets unchecked by the user themselves. And I often find that myself and others, we have way too much trust in AI, like too much faith in what it says, and it often comes out with the wrong things. Like, how many times have you used AI and it said, sorry, I don't know? You never get that. Google you do. Google sometimes says, sorry, that we're not what you're looking for. AI, I don't think it's once said, I don't know. And that scares me, because that means that we are being fed inaccurate information, because there's questions in my head which I might ask myself and I go, I don't know. And I ask other people and they don't know. But if we're asking AI and it seems to know everything, then it must include inaccurate information. And I often before this presentation, I tested AI a bit. And actually, I asked it what it knows about me. And I encourage you all to do this after today. Go back and ask AI, what do you know about me? And it is quite scary and concerning what it comes back with. If you've got an unusual name like mine, often it comes up with the wrong people if you've got a common name. But it knew exactly what my dissertation was on, and that isn't public information at all. That isn't information which I fed into the AI. I haven't asked it on my dissertation. I've only just started the ergo process, really. So, and when I ask it back. So it comes back, oh, he's doing his dissertation on plastic pollution in Vietnam. And then I was like, how do you know that? And then it comes back, sorry, that must have been a rough guess or something like that. That was incorrect. But that's not incorrect. That is what I'm doing my dissertation on. So yeah, it's doing things that we don't even know. And that's what I want to leave you with. Yeah.